Hello! Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to your own home. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you are settling in and, just ring the bell. There should be a little silver bell next to your seat. Just ring the bell. And somebody will come around to get your drink order, bring you some snacks, whatever you need. We'll get it taken care of. Welcome to the class. Welcome to the stream. Hello, hello, hello. We are going to take a few minutes before we actually get the class underway. And so if this is your first time or if you have rushed to get here on time, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Please grab something to drink, grab something to snack on. You might grab a tarot deck. You might grab some runes. You might light a candle. You might light some incense. You might grab a journal and something to write on. I would also recommend maybe grabbing some art supplies. You might be moved to express yourself in a way that words just don't quite cut it. So take a minute, get yourself comfy, get yourself right. Hello, Quinn. Yay. Hello. Hello, Patty. Hello, Darlene. Woo! Oh my God. Everybody's here. It's so cool. I love it. Oh, I hope everybody's been doing really great in this, what is it? Is it the new year? Is it the old year? Is it the new old year? I don't know what we're doing. What is time, right? Like, January has already felt like it was 6 months long. So, like, what have we not had yet? Like, we haven't had a meteor attack. And it's not like a dare. I'm just, like, checking the list, okay? Don't get any ideas. But, it's like we've had a coup attempt. We have had a presidential change. It's just like, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. So please, settle in, make yourself at home, get cozy, do your thing. Ms. Rachel is in the house, everyone. Everybody, Ms. Rachel is in the house. One of the premier experimental and noise musicians of the Pacific Northwest, Rachel LeBlanc. Also has an easy hand with a corpse. It's Jessica! Everybody, Jessica, Miss Jessica. We may see some Jessica illustration here this evening. I can't remember if I put the pages in or not. It's been a whirlwind, folks. It's been a whirlwind on my end. Oh, Lordy. Yeah, oh my gosh. So, again, if it's your first time here or if you rushed to get here, please take a few minutes. Get yourself comfy, get yourself cozy. Maybe hit up a bestie and see if you guys want to co-watch this on Zoom. Is there a friend? Is there a relative that should know about me and all the cool stuff I do, or this amazing channel and the classes that we teach here? Please let them know. And here's the rest of the ad. It's Silver Fox. Boom, 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 boom. Talk about heavy hitters in the chat. Hello. Silver is one of, I'm not even going to limit it to the Pacific Northwest. Silver is one of America's premier tattoo artists. Full stop. Go check them out. I'm sure right now they're like, OMG, no, I'm not. Yeah, you are. So just, figure it out. I know. It's just like heavies and homies and amazing people in the chat right now. You all should know each other. And, let's dream of that soiree. Draw that in, right? That would be an amazing salon, amazing hangout. We will get started here in just a few minutes. It's already 6 after, so I'll wait just a moment more and then we will get going. If you, we're doing things slightly different this time around because the last couple of years I have taught this class as a cycle that ran from Imbolc to Yule. And this year, I'm teaching that from Imbolc to Imbolc. So I'm including this class in the 2020 energetic stream, I guess is the best way to say that. And sometimes I have a book available. Usually I have a book available for download through my website. This time I do not. If you would like the workbook that we will be referencing to throughout the class, you can become a patron and you can subscribe for as little as $1, and you will get the access to the Dropbox that has not only the workbook that we're going to talk about, but all of the slides that we're going to use in class, a 7 to 8 week calendar, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Any other supplementary material I feel like throwing in there, it all gets thrown in there. So it's there. Go check it out. So if you want the workbook, go subscribe and you can download it immediately. It's the most recent post. So, actually, that's a lie. You know what? I just told you a lie. You have to be subscribed at the $9 or higher level to get the Dropbox for this class. So sorry. I'm glad I caught that now. Come back. And the rest of the ad, and I'll probably have some more ads later, so forewarned. If you have not already, please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel. I just hit 100 subscribers and I'm like kind of freaked out about it. That's pretty cool. Yay, Vanessa! Man, I'm the talent. Y'all go look up Vanessa Scanza. Go, I dare you. Well, okay, stay here and watch this class. But in another tab, go look up Vanessa. Go see what that person is doing with their life. Talk about international heavy hitter. Hello. It's out of control right now. Okay, now I'm freaked out. Now I'm intimidated. I'm not going to do a good job. Okay. Please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications for the algorithms. I highly, highly appreciate it. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor, share this widely because it's free for all beings. When Ms. Rona decided to show up and crash the party last year, obviously I had to shut my classes down, my live classes, and I switched over to teaching them online, and I decided that everybody needed this information, or maybe that's a little megalomaniacal on my part, but of the people who do need this information, I didn't feel like a financial barrier felt good. So I just decided to make the classes free. And if you can support me, you can join my Patreon and subscribe monthly and help keep these classes free, help keep them flowing in the universe and all of that good stuff. Okay, let's get into the official preamble, although that was a lot of the official preamble. And then we'll actually get into the class. Let's go. Okay. This class is being taught currently from unceded Duwamish territory in Seattle, Washington, United States, Turtle Island. It's wild. I say this every time, and it's ridiculous that I'm still saying it because it's still true. But we have some of the world's richest people here in Seattle and in Washington State because we have terribly regressive tax laws in Washington. And yet we have hundreds, if not thousands, of homeless people sleeping on our streets every night. Somehow we can't quite get this figured out. So last year, a lot of the emphasis that we put on our classes, we were donating 5% of the proceeds to a group called Real Rent Duwamish, where folks can either pay rent in a one-time donation or as a monthly rent, basically, for living in Seattle as a form of reparations for the Duwamish tribe, which still has not received federal recognition, while one of the richest cities in America is happily going about its business on their ancestral lands. It's a thing we do in America. I don't know. But you can get involved with that group. You can send them money and educate yourself further on that. If you are not in the Seattle or Puget Sound area, look for a group that's like that. Go find out whose land you're actually living on and see if there isn't a group that maybe you can pay reparations to. Even if it's just one time, even if it's just $5. I'm not telling you to go break the bank. But the idea is that we don't want to just dream about a better future. We want to build a better present, right? We want to do what we can where we are at. And these types of actions are that thing. It's that stuff taken out of the thought world and brought into the physical plane. Okay, last little bit here is I will use phrases like goddess, god, yang energy, yin energy. I will refer to penises and vaginas and buttholes and other delicious parts of the human anatomy. These are not intended to be referring to any particular gender. What I'm talking about are energies that all humans have the responsibility, the right, the power, the opportunity to embody, explore, and express. So when I'm talking about something like goddess energy or our vaginas or our yin energy, what I'm talking about is that thing that's in all beings that is acted upon, that yearns, that draws in, that holds something and can gestate something while it is growing and developing and becoming a thing. That energy is that thing that draws something out of itself. That's all that stuff, and all of us have that in us. And when I'm talking about God energy or penis energy or thrust or yang energy, what I'm talking about is that energy that's in all of us to be extroverted, to be maybe competitive, to be bold, to be curious, and to be insistent and intense about what it is that we're doing. It's that thing in us that wants to push out into the world and maybe into somebody else's world or reality. All of us have access to all of these types of energies. And we're going to be talking about parental stuff like mother energy and father energy a little bit later. And again, these are all concepts that we all can access in various ways. It does not have to be through our physical body or through some sort of gender paradigm. One of my favorite drag queens introduces all of their shows as, welcome ladies and gentlemen and everybody who knows better. So it's a little bit of that, right? All right, let us begin. Imbolc, welcome. Now, what am I? Okay. Imbolc. This is a Sabbat in the Wheel of the Year of the 8 classes or the 8 Sabbats that we witness in the course of the Wheel of the Year. This is a cross-quarter holiday, also referred to as a Greater Sabbat. And it's interesting because I would say in my surveying of people who practice witchcraft and paganism and different forms of heathenism, Imbolc is actually one of the less known and less understood holidays, even though it is considered to be a greater Sabbat or a greater holiday. So let's talk about it. In the Imbolc season, we are still in winter. Technically, we are still in winter. And we see a variety of different symbols and a variety of different energetic work that we can partake in during Imbolc season. And that really speaks to the transition and mutability energy that we find in Imbolc season. But it also speaks to the differences that people experience based on where they live on the planet. Because February at the equator feels very, very different than February at the North Pole. And so if you're experiencing Imbolc season and you're really close to the equator, you more than likely are seeing flowers bloom. You're probably seeing animals already mating and doing their thing. You're seeing, you're seeing the world really come back to life after its winter stillness. However, if you're way up close to the North Pole, or the South Pole for that matter, and you're experiencing this time of year, it's very, very cold and very, very dark. In fact, I'm actually wrong scientifically. If you're at the South Pole, this is just after summertime. But I digress. Planetary tilts, they'll screw you up every time. But if you're really close to the North Pole, February is still incredibly cold, incredibly dark. Your days are still very, very short. Probably everything is frozen. Not a lot of stuff is growing, maybe nothing at all. There's probably not a lot of animal activity except for a lot of the predators that are doing their thing during winter. And so there still is quite a bit of stillness. Regardless, I think of Imbolc season as the warm-up class that we take before we jump into whatever is going to happen in spring. We are not in Yule season anymore. Yule, it really is that solstice, right? Sun stands still is what that word means. Sun still, solstice. And so winter, Yule, the very heart of winter, really is about coming to a full rest, coming to a full stop, hibernation energy, really like chilling out, taking it easy, moving slowly, not trying to start up a whole bunch of new stuff. Obviously, we can't leave the physical plane. We still have things to attend to, right? There's still diapers to be changed and bills to be paid and dog poop to be picked up and whatnot. Cat poop. There's no dogs involved here, but there's still work to be done, right? But our serotonin is super low. Our melatonin is really high thanks to the sun barely making it up over the horizon. It's not triggering that chemical response in us. So it's difficult for us to even really give a shit about anything, right? It's very easy to kind of think to yourself like, sleeping 20 hours? Yeah, totally. I'm into that. And if we didn't live in this go, 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 consume, consume, consume Western environment that we live in currently, you might really actually have the opportunity to be very, very still, to sleep, to not really go outside too much, to not really interact with too many other people, as little as possible really is what we're talking about with that. But we've moved through that. And now we are coming to Imbolc season. And Imbolc Imbolc is a day, technically February 1st, February 2nd, but I also think of the Sabbats as covering an entire season. And I think of Imbolc season as running from about February 2nd to spring equinox, which is March 21st. And technically, I actually really think of Imbolc season as starting when the sun enters Aquarius in tropical astrology. So that would be about January 20th, approximately, about a week ago. So this is, really dependent on where you are on the planet. Is it cold? Is it hot? Not hot, but is it really warming up? Is it really getting bright outside? Maybe it's still really rainy. Maybe it's still really squishy and wet and mushy outside, but can you see the life coming back? Or are you really far toward one of the poles and it's still pretty quiet and still pretty dark? Either way, we are in the transition period between the heart of winter and the beginning of spring. So we want to think of this whole stretch of time that is Imbolc season as this place where we gently begin to warm up all of our bodies, all of our different selves, and bring them back to life and bring them back to awareness and back to functionality and back out here into the physical plane. We're pretty insular. We're pretty self-oriented during winter and Imbolc season, and that's really appropriate. And we're going to get into that stuff later. But I just kind of wanted to give you this overview of like what we're doing in this season. What is the point of this? And the point of it is to stretch it out before we actually start to do the thing. Let's warm up our muscles. Let's stretch out our bodies, physically, emotionally, psychologically, all of that stuff. Testing the waters, as it were. Okay, so the stuff that we are looking at in this season can feel kind of harrowing. In Imbolc season, the big major themes for witches are purification, perseverance, and renewal. And in that, we are sort of acknowledging to ourselves, yes, things are changing, but yes, we are still in winter. Yes, the light is coming back, but yeah, there's still a lot of darkness. And isn't that a very realistic metaphor for us in the grand scheme of things? So we're dealing with purification, perseverance, and renewal. So I'm like, do I go to the slides? I do this different every time. There we go. How about that? All right. Purification of self, restoration of natural resources, initiations, honoring craftspeople, healers and midwives, learning a new skill, and returning to your spiritual practice. This is all the stuff that we are doing during Imbolc season. This is a lot of work. There's a lot of different things going on with this. So, purification of self, pretty straightforward, but we're going to see a lot of holidays that are dedicated to this idea of purification of the body, purification of the environment, that sort of thing. Restoration of natural resources, also a big deal at this time of year. Initiations, honoring craftspeople. Okay, so this is, if you're the first time to the class, welcome. Tangents. Definitely a thing. And also every now and then I'm like, there's so much, where do I start? Okay. Let me back it up just a little bit. We're going to come back to this. First, actually, what I want to talk about, before we talk about the work that we're doing here, I want to talk about the deities or the entities that we are working with. For folks that have been working with me in this series for a while, you know that in different years and different iterations of these classes, I have included lists of deities to work with and then taken them back out. So this year there is a new page in the workbook, and it is a list of not the names of deities, but the categories, the archetypes that they fall into. So it's sun gods and storm and weather deities. It's a suggestion, a list of all of the different types of archetypes and deities that you might work with at this time of year. And the reason that I did it that way is because if you want to actually work with the goddesses, the gods, the saints, the Orisha, the Loa, the ancestors, the guides that the various religions and spiritual traditions and philosophies around the earth work with at this time of year, they are all listed in the calendar. They're all listed there, and in the calendar, it is as correct as I can get it every year. So, buyer beware, there's always a few mistakes, and I apologize in advance. And there's also some things that I just can't find information on. I know that it happens at the end of January, but I don't know when. But if you want specifics, if you want specific goddesses, gods, and saints and other deities and archetypal entities to work with, those are all listed out in the calendar. If you, however, don't want to work with a particular deity on a particular day, maybe you're not into the Christian pantheon. There are Christian and Catholic holidays listed. Maybe you don't want to deal with the Christian pantheon, and that's the only being that's listed that day is somebody that's associated with that pantheon. Well, you can go to the back and see, what other deities could I be working with? Oh, storm deities. And then think into your own pantheon. Are there storm or weather deities that I could work with at this time of year? Do they maybe have a holy day at this time of year that I didn't know about? Or maybe we don't know if they had a holy day. And that's something that will come up as you do this kind of work, is sometimes we simply just don't know. And sometimes those histories have actually been erased and destroyed. I always think that the gods and goddesses are excited when we remember their names, and it doesn't matter if we screw up the day. It doesn't matter if we get the wrong time of year. I mean, there are a couple gods and goddesses that are actually pretty uptight about that, but for the most part, a lot of them are pretty chill. I think a lot of them are pretty chill about it anyways. If they give you beef, just send them to me, and I'll talk them through it. I don't know. All right, so that being said, this holiday is really, really, really centered around a particular deity named Bridget. This is Bridget as the poet. This piece of artwork is by a person named Helen Mask, Helen, last name Mask, like Mask, M-A-S-K, and you can find them at Mask Illustration. Bridget is our number one goddess that we are working with at this time of year for pagans and witches that are influenced by the Western European tradition in any way. A few of the different names for Imbolc are La Fille Bride, which is the fest of Bride or Bridget, L'Arbrigi, Brigantia, the feast of Goddess Bridget, and the feast of Saint Bridget. So this holiday is very much centered around this deity, veneration of her, adoration of her, as well as looking to her for advice and inspiration. And in this deity, we find a lot of really cool stuff. So like I said, this is Bridget in her poet aspect. Here is Bridget the Healer. I also think this looks quite oracular, and I could definitely see this as someone preparing a medicinal concoction, but I could also see this as a being doing some kind of prognosticative or divinatory work, and we certainly are doing that kind of stuff at this time of year. And then here is Bridget in probably her most well-known form, pounding iron on an anvil. If there is one thing that the goddess Bridget is really, really known for, it is for being an iron worker and bringing the skills of all of these things to her people. She is a goddess that kind of does it all. She's a fire goddess, a light and heat goddess, but she is also a goddess known for all of her different crafts and all of her different skills that she not only can do, but that she teaches to her people. And so it's very traditional to see her pounding iron on an anvil like an old school blacksmith. This is another picture of her as an iron worker. I love that she has that rolled up scroll in her hand, because that's the plan, right? She's planning what she's going to be doing. You can see the halo around her head are pen nibs, hearkening again to her version of herself as a poet. And if you look on either side of her, you see snowdrops and crocuses, which of course are some of the few flowers that are blooming at this time of year. And so they are dedicated to her and special to her. And then the other character, the other goddess or version of the goddess that we are working with very heavily at this time of year is Cailleach. Cailleach. I'm sure there is some Scottish person out there that's like, no, that's not how it's pronounced. It's, but sorry. Fly me to Scotland and teach me how to say it. That would be the best revenge possible. Yes. So Cailleach is another, the other big Western European goddess that we are working with at this time of year. As fiery and hot and brash and bold and sexy and vibrant as Bridget is, Cailleach is the opposite of all of that. Cailleach is the embodiment of winter and frozen death. She is the white queen. She is the frozen queen, the snow queen that we evoke and invoke at Yule season. Some people think of her reign beginning at Samhain, which is October 31st, and some people think of her reign beginning all the way back at fall equinox or Mabon, which is September 21st. And her reign lasts through spring equinox. So, and some people suggest that maybe her reign is over at February 2nd at Imbolc, but I don't think so. I think in particular this last 6 to 8 weeks of winter belong to her almost more than any of the others. She is a crone, and she is, or they are, an energy of fate and divination and prophecy, but also fate as in, the turning of the wheel, the spinning of the thread. She is absolutely one of those types of characters that helps spin the fiber, weave the tapestry, and ultimately cut the thread later on. And we know that all of our crone deities have something to do with that cutting of the thread, ending life, ending a process, ending an energetic cycle. And so that is a big part of why we are working with her here in these last 6 to 8 weeks of winter season, because she is overseeing the process of us finalizing, wrapping up, finishing, concluding, climaxing, whatever it is that we were doing in our 2020 energetic cycle. And she is here with a big pair of sterling silver scissors gleaming in the moonlight, ready to shunk, chop the thread as soon as we are, and sometimes maybe not, we're not always ready for her to do it. But she's here and saying, that energy cycle has run its course. Shunk, let's let that go and let's pick up a new thread and start weaving a new pattern. And that's really what's up. So these are the two big forms of the goddess that we are working with at this time of year. And Bridget is fiery. She is the bright one. She is the great one. She is referred to as the fiery arrow. She oversees the following. Healing, prophecy, skills, warfare, poetry, childbirth, marriage, arts, smithing, protecting houses. I mean, she's just like this big old laundry list of stuff that she's in charge of and has something to say about. And she is this energy that we can really think of as coming back from the lands of the dead. So I keep saying that, coming back from the dead, coming back from death, coming back from the lands of the dead. What am I talking about? Well, Yule season. At Yule season, the god dies. The sun god dies. The vegetation gods are all dead by that point. And they literally really die. Metaphorically really die. And there is this stillness, obviously, that we've talked about a bunch. For pagans and Wiccans, we see that in the death of the Holly King, and the Holly King is replaced by the Oak King, who rises up. But the Oak King is old and pretty slow and very traditional, very set in his ways. So it isn't a brash, vibrant life, energy that's like crashing to the forefront. It's, grumpy grandpa energy that's like sort of shuffling in the background. That's really where the Oak King is at this time. And it's that energy that we get from evergreen trees, right? Like nothing real exciting is going to happen with them, but they're not going away either. And we're grateful for their protection during winter, and we're totally bored with them in summer. So it's a lot of that type of energy. But then we have Bridget as sort of the goddess version of the embodiment of this rising light, of the sunlight that is slowly coming back to us. Because, of course, we're seeing the sun get higher and higher in the sky every day. We're seeing our day lengths get longer and longer every day. And of course, at spring equinox, they will actually be equal night and equal day. And then from that point forward to summer solstice, the days will be longer than the nights. But for now, we're still on the dark side of things. We're still on the half of the wheel where the nights are longer than the days. The sun is not coming up very, very high in the sky, but it is growing. It's not decreasing, it's increasing. And Bridget is very much an embodiment of that energy. Bridget is also very much an embodiment of the energy of the beings, the real humans in our communities that get us through this process, that hold space for us while we are doing our hibernation work, our inner dealings, whatever that is. Maybe we're doing vision quests, maybe we're just, taking it a little easy, but Bridget also is the embodiment of the crafts and the skills and the wisdom that is personified in the beings around us that keep the world going and keep the world moving. In particular, obviously she's connected to ironworkers, but she's really connected to midwives. And we can be really straightforward in that and be like, yeah, midwives, but also a midwife is any person that helps you bring your baby into the world. And that doesn't have to be a flesh baby. That could be a project. That could be a song. That could be a piece of art. That could be, a personal transformation that you go through. who are the persons or the people in your community and in your personal life who are holding space and continuing to take care of things while you go in and do the work or undo yourself and then redo yourself again. That's that energy too. Okay. She is probably Brigantia from Rome. She is possibly Minerva as well. And she's definitely a witch goddess, so we love that. She is considered the mother saint of Ireland. Bridget was so baked into Western European culture as a deity and an icon that when the Catholics rolled through and they were like, nope, it's all saints, they were not getting rid of her. So they just were like, all right, we compromise, put saint in the front of her name and just call it good. Like, don't question, let's just let her go. And one of the cool things about her is her Genesis story. When she was born from a polygendered, amorphic kind of being. So she's kind of born from the all, from all of the potential that there is possible in a being. And was born literally on the threshold of a house. So this being had 1 foot in the house and 1 foot outside. And there's very much that sense of Bridget sort of being a little of here and a little of there, right? She's doing all this fiery stuff, but she's also doing prophecy and fate and divinatory work too. Bridget's Genesis story is really cool. Go read it. Go check it out. I'm already looking at the time, and I know how it is. Who goes on tangents? This chick. Okay. All right. Bridget. Fiery goddess, lots of skills, very cool, a really dope embodiment of the crafts, the skills, and the wisdom that help keep us alive through winter and help hold space while we are going in and doing our work. And also a symbol of that craft and wisdom and skill embodied in the beings that are in our community doing that work for us and with us. Side note, I mean, let's just think about that for a second. Here in the time of COVID, how many people in your community, whether you personally know them or not, are making your life possible because they're delivering your groceries, they're delivering your takeout, they are still delivering your mail and your packages. I mean, there is just a phenomenal number of people that are actually embodying this energy right now at this time of year, whether they know it or not, because they really are the people that are keeping the wheels grinding and turning and keeping society functioning and flowing so that we can do what we need to do and keep ourselves healthy and safe and make our changes and progress and move forward. So it's wild sometimes how the magic and reality are literally the same thing. All right, so let's also talk about Cailleach for just a moment. Cailleach is our crone goddess. She is, or they are, the embodiment of winter, death, frozen energy, stillness. They are very much a symbol of that thing that won't die in winter. Like everything else has died, but there's something left, and that's Cailleach. She is very much an embodiment of the earth in her winter garb, in her winter role. And something I will say about goddess energy at Yule class is the god energy waxes and wanes through the seasons. We see God energy really pumped up at summer solstice, right? Like that's really riding high. We got a lot of surge thrust energy coming from the sun at that point. Totally the opposite at winter solstice, right? Like, where's the sun? Nobody's seen it for weeks. Have no idea. He owes me $5. Where's the sun? So we get a wax and a wane from the sun's energy, but the earth is pretty consistent. Yes, plants grow and they die. Yes, animals migrate and they're here and they leave and come back again. But there is a solidity. There is a continuity to the energy of the goddess. She's always here. She's always present. However, in winter, she's a little more abstract. If there was ever a time that the goddess pulls her energy back a little bit, or maybe isn't pulling back, but is just personifying in a way that feels more abstract to us, I think that it's during winter season, particularly at Yule, but she's also here at Imbolc. And so Kaleic is that. She's chilly. She's unimpressed. She's unenthused. She is maybe a little grumpy. We see traces of the Morrigan connected to Kaleic. And the Morrigan maybe was one goddess, maybe was a collection of goddesses, but the Morrigan were absolutely in charge of some of the more grim detail work in the world. Washing, you'd see the Morrigan standing over a river with one foot on either bank. That symbology again, right? One on either side. Washing their clothes in the river, and they were washing the blood off of the clothing of soldiers that were going to die on the field that day, that kind of thing. So there's a darkness to this. And so a lot, as I was starting to say earlier, a lot of this energy can feel very harrowing. A lot of the work that we do at this time can feel very like, ugh, like this is heavy. That's okay. It's okay. It's okay that we're a little freaked out by it, and it's okay that it's a little freaky. I think that a lot of our Western world is pretty sanitized and sterilized. And I think it's really good for us to remember, thanks to just like a random tilt of our planet, that we're even have a hospitable planet at all. Chaos is right there at any time, ready to prove you and your plans completely wrong. So something I will say at Samhain, and I know I keep referring to past classes, but Imbolc is sort of the culmination of everything that we have been working on for the last year, and is also the place where we wipe all of that out and make space for whatever's coming next. That's that mutable transition thing that we're doing, transformation, transmogrification, all of that. So Kaleic is this energy that is still, that's dark, and is also like, hey, we got to do this work. We need to go into the shadow realms and have these conversations with ourselves. We need to do this work. We need to die and come back again. We need to be still and then start to move again. That's exactly what meditation is, right? It gives us that opportunity to just stop for a moment and then begin again. So that's what's up with this whole season, and that's what's up with Kaleic and with Bridget and, a lot of what we're doing at Imbolc. We've been stopped, and now it's time to slowly begin to move forward again. Kaleic is in charge of guarding rivers, springs, hills, mountains. She controls the weather. She protects elk and deer. She also protects boars, mountain goats, wild cattle, wolves. She is ancient. She is weather-torn. She has one white eye and one blue eye. And one of my favorite descriptions of her, though we didn't see it in this illustration that I showed you, is she's often depicted with big boar's tusks coming out of her face. And that is always very intriguing to me, because there is a very particular thread of goddesses throughout time from all over the world that are depicted with these big tusks. They're either curled up like this or they curl down like this, but big tusks. And ultimately, they all relate back to Kali. And Kaleic, Kali, they're not identical, but they are similar. But moreover, they both are goddesses of death and transition and change, and they both also have a very vibrant sexuality about them. One of my favorite stories about Kaleic is she is chilling out next to her well, her wet hole that she has that goes deep down into the ground. Yeah, I said it. Well, it's witchcraft, people. It's going to get nasty in here. She's hanging out next to her well, and these 3 knights come wandering up, and they're thirsty, and they'd like a little drink of what she's serving. And she's like, yeah, no sweat. Just give me a kiss. And 2 of the knights are like, I'm good. I'm cool. No, I'm not into this at all. Thank you. Keep your bizarre witch well water. I don't want any part of that. And the third night is like, I'm into it. And he strolls up and he's like, not only am I going to kiss you, I'm going to knock those sacred boots. And he does her right. Goddess bless. This is the old time religion that we're trying to bring back. And she magically transforms into, ta-da, Bridget. So that's right. Wet hole. That's right. She magically transforms into Bridget. There's other stories about Callaic where she is kidnapping Bridget and almost kills her. And then Angus, the solar god Angus, comes to Bridget's rescue, quote unquote. But of course, you know, if Callaic and Bridget are actually part of each other, you're never rescuing from the other, right? You know, this is simply a who's in charge, who gets what half of the year. The idea that we have the fiery and the chilly aspect in these two also sits very comfortably with the idea that Celts, for a asterisk tangent, when we say the word Celtic, we are talking about a gigantic group of people over multiple chunks of time. So Celtic can mean a lot of stuff. But Western Europeans / Gaul / Teutonic folk / Celts really divided the year into into two halves. They had the summer half and the winter half, and the bright half began at Beltane and the dark half began at Samhain. And so it also makes sense that they would have these two goddesses sort of reigning over one half of the year or the other. So we're seeing Bridget coming back into her position of power, and we're seeing Callaic have her final few moments. Before we go on to a little bit more symbolism for Imbolc, and then we move into a bunch of the other stuff that we talk about in these classes, Callaic is death. She is stillness. And something I will say every single year in my classes is do not rush death. You got to let her do her thing. We are going to be too busy with too much stuff and too many demands before we know it. And I know, oh my God, COVID, and there's a 15th variant out there, but the vaccines are coming. And even if they don't, I would not put it past our government to start opening things up beyond what is safe and, you know, demanding people go back to work and go back to school again, you know, because it's worked so well for the last year, right? I just wouldn't put it past us. And even if not that, as the sun comes back, it's going to be more realistic to go outside and safely hang out with people outside again, like we were doing over the summer this last year. So before you know it, the energy is going to start to pick up. There's going to be too many things to say yes to. There's going to be too much stuff to do. Give Callaic her due. Give Callaic her time. Be dead. Don't rush death. You're going to be jumping back to life and jumping back to having too many things to worry about in no time at all. So be glad for this opportunity of stillness, of checking in, of slowly waking back up from death and stretching out your proverbial muscles and stretching out your body and welcoming yourself back to the physical plane and physical reality. All right. The last thing I want to talk about. Oh, no. I'm gonna come back to that. Okay. So, witches' work. Purification of self, restoration of natural resources, honoring craftspeople, healers, and midwives, learning a new skill, and returning to your spiritual practice. So, purification of self, I think that, maybe that's not obvious, so maybe I should talk about it. What are we doing at this time of year? We're doing this stuff. As we move out of the last energy cycle and get ready for the next energy cycle, we want to purify the selves. And I really think of moving through Capricorn as a time of purifying the body, moving through Aquarius as a time of purifying the mind, and moving through Pisces, which is the very, very end of Imbolc, right up to spring equinox, Ostara, as a place where we purify the spirit. So wintertime really is this run through those three bodies, the physical body, the mental body, and the spiritual body, or the emotional body. And these are all places where we can purify. Now, purification and purifying, that is a word and a concept that has a lot of baggage added to it. So there is nothing inherently wrong with you. There is nothing inherently dirty or sinful about you. Ugh, with all of that type of stuff. What I'm talking about is just the natural energy, the natural patterning that we accrue as we live, as we go through life and experience things and do stuff. We pick up shit, and we pick up cynicism, right? We pick up opinions about things. Those are all things that can be purified from us too. This is not about a fast or a detox, although sure, but if that's safe for you, if that's something that's reasonable for you, fine, we can do it that way too. But this is more about a spiritual purification, an emotional purification, a purification of your space, of your environment. And by purifying, I mean sort of a rectifying, a cleansing, an accounting and a cleaning out and a straightening up. And that really leads into the next idea, the restoration of natural resources. This purification thing that we're doing for ourselves and for our environment, this restoration of natural resources, it is addressing the chaos of winter. It is addressing the undoing of the natural order that we experience in wintertime. It is a moment where we can kind of say to these natural systems, hey, you've been going crazy for weeks. We're clearing out these branches. We are, reestablishing that there's a garden here that we might grow some stuff in. Or, the winds and the flood knocked down part of the dam that we had built to help irrigate our lands, the stream nearby. So we need to go back out there and reset that up. It's that sort of a thing. It is a going and checking on those resources and solidifying them, improving them, fortifying them. And so we're doing that for ourselves, and we're doing that for our environment, and we're doing that for our environment and our community at large. Initiations also happen a lot at this time of year because this is the end of the old cycle and getting ready to step into the beginning of the new cycle. And so with that idea of initiation, you also have a returning to your spiritual practice, whatever that might look like for you. Maybe you were doing meditation and you left that off. I find that Imbolc season can be a really fantastic time to come back to our New Year's resolutions that we have already forgotten about, or we did it for that first 12 days of January and then we kind of slacked off on it. This is a time where we can pick that thing back up again and stuff becomes habit only through repetition. It's okay if it's not a habit yet, but you can make it be that way. So this is a really great time to return. And again, it's that idea of like returning to the fire, returning to the inspiration, returning to the light, and that stuff returning to us. So coming back to those traditions, those spiritual practices, the philosophical beliefs that inspire you, that buoy you up, and help kind of bring you through and out of the darkness. And then, of course, as we talked about extensively, honoring craftspeople, etc., etc. Okay, so some other names for this holiday. Imbolc and Oimek. These are both really important. Imbolc is Old Irish, or Mulga, which is Modern Irish, and they both mean in the belly. Now, in Wicca and paganism, at winter solstice, the Holly King is killed by the Oak King, who is both his father, or I guess all three, his father, his son, and his brother. It's a thing in paganism. There's a lot of incest. It just is that way, okay? The Egyptians did it, so we're doing it too. Can't stop me. Dad, son, brother. I'm pretty sure that you can get this on Pornhub too. But now they're gonna deplatform this video because I said that. jokes. But the Holly King is killed slashed, replaced by the Oak King. And the Oak King, the Holly King and the Oak King both are the consorts of the goddess. So the Holly King has knocked the sacred boots of the goddess. They have slept together. They have lain in the holy bed of bedding. And she has gotten pregnant. And so here we are 6 to 8 weeks later. And now we are saying in the belly, there's the fire in the belly, the baby is growing, the quickening is occurring. That's another phrase that I connect and others connect to this holiday, the quickening. And it's from these two names, Imbolc and Oimek, which both mean in the belly. We cannot necessarily see the pregnancy happening, but we know that there is energy stirring. And again, this is another place where we're using terminology that feels like it's very fixed, but it's not. When I'm talking about pregnant, I'm talking about a being that is gestating something that is ultimately going to be coming out into the world. And that could be anything. That could be a personal transformation, that could be a project, that could be a flesh baby, that could be all kinds of stuff. So don't limit your thinking on that. What's interesting about this word, though, oimek, is also Gaelic for ewe's milk. And interestingly, imbolc, which is Old Irish, means to wash or cleanse oneself. And in turn, this is related to the Proto-Indo-European root word meaning both milk and cleanse. And when I read all of that, I have several aha moments as I put these classes together. Every time I'm like, oh, there it is. What it also really made me think of is the ritual that we find in Hindu practice where the yoni lingam is washed and amrita is created. And one of the big things that's poured over it is milk. You have the yoni lingam, which is a combination of goddess and god energy. And in that festival, or in those rituals, those rites, all sorts of stuff gets dumped over it. Rose water, purified water, and honey and milk and all sorts of other things, flower petals and all this stuff. And it pours over the Shiva Lingam, which is the god form. And then it gathers in the bowl of the yoni, which is the goddess form, Shakti. And then it ultimately comes to a little funnel and pours out the end. And this mixture of stuff that comes out, it frankly looks like juice after sex, and it's called amrita, which is the juice of the gods from their lovemaking, and it is used to cleanse and purify and bless people, homes, animals, land, property, etc., etc. So visually there's a real connection there with milk and washing and cleansing and purifying and all of that stuff. Okay. Other names that we see for this holiday and other pagan holidays that are happening right around this time: Thorablat, which is a blood sacrifice or a blood letting from the Norse people for Thor at this time of year. Bari, this is the feast of Bari, the goddess Bari. King Frost Day, there's a holy day name that is acknowledging the god energy, the Oak King, grandpa energy. Uphelia is a really fantastic holiday that is still celebrated in Scotland, where basically people dress up like Vikings. They set a boatload of stuff on fire, I think including a boat, and then they just carouse through the streets drinking and knocking over dustbins and, just being Scottish. It's pretty much par for the course. It's a Friday, honestly. I don't know why they gave it a special name. As we talked about before, La Firbride, La Brigi Brigantia, and the Feast of Goddess Bridget, as well as the Feast of Saint Bridget. These are all other names for Bridget's holiday, Bridget's feast. And then we have these other two names here, Disting and Dieseblat. These two names come to us from the Norse and Teutonic tribes. Dieseblat from the Norse and Disting from Teutonic folk. These both are fate goddess holidays, sort of. The Dieseblat refers specifically to the Dizir, who are like the Norns. They are fates. Disting also sort of is referring to these same beings. And in particular, what is being worshipped or venerated or conceptualized in these holidays are goddesses that carry distaffs, D-I-S-T, staves, distaffs. These are sacred staves that were a sign of skill and a status, carried only by women and passed down matrilineal. We know that these go back quite some ways. Oops. Let's talk about this for a second. This is one of the main symbols that we'll see for Imbolc that pagans involve themselves with, which is the crown of candles. It will be worn either by the youngest person in the room or the most motherly, not the oldest woman, but the woman who's the most powerful, really, in the room, or the femme, or the being that really takes on the mother status in the house. We see this with the St. Lucia and Lucy festivals that happen throughout this season as well. Here is another version of that. And then I love this stuff. I think it's really cool. The Janet and Stuart Farrar's Witch's Bible Complete gives a pretty good set of instructions on how to make a crown out of aluminum foil. That you can actually wear. It's much easier to do it the smaller the candles are. So if you can get some like menorah candles are the perfect size. They're not too tall, they're not too small. But big full-size tapers, girl, good luck. I want to see the video. I don't know if I want to be there for it though. And then another very common symbol that we see pagans work with at this time of year is the Priapic wand. And the Priapic wand is the symbol of the God energy that is slowly and gently coming back to light and life at this time of year. And a Priapic wand is very specifically, literally, a wand, or a branch that you have found that has fallen on the ground that has a pine cone or has a collection of seed energy at the end. And it literally is sort of the living embodiment of the thrust seed energy that we find in the God. Here's a couple more. It's a terribly blurry picture, I apologize. But you can see that these are all really natural. This is just the natural growth of these, the pine cone or the fir cone or whatever evergreen these people were working with. That's not glued on. That's just naturally occurring. So that's really what you're looking for. It needs to be a naturally occurring thing. Priapic wand. So this picture is from the Hittites. This is approximately 800 BCE, 700 BCE, somewhere in there. And this is a person spinning on a distaff with another person standing by and helping them with a spindle. This is the way that raw wool is spun, or it is a way that raw wool is spun into flax and ultimately into thread that is ultimately then used to make other stuff. Here is a picture of a person from Greece. Now we see in different eras and different regions, sometimes the distaff is something that's really small and handheld, like it is here in this picture. It's just big enough. And what you're seeing, that bubble or that lump, that egg shape bit that's at the top, that is the raw wool or the raw material that you're working with. And then it is spun out from there into the tool that's on the other hand that actually spins the string, spins the thing into flax and ultimately into thread, and then it's gathered on that. Here is a person from the turn of the century. I believe this is from Afghanistan. And you can see that they are using a 3-pronged bit at the top there. That is a pretty classic form that we see in distaffs. That is also something called a stang, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Here we can see our old size queen has all the damn wool. Like, you get it, Grandma, let's go. She's like, bitch, I'll spin a yarn. You tell me about some shit. There was a couple of these pictures I was like, okay, is it a competition? What is the deal here? But you can see the completely natural material gathered on the staff. And her staff is much longer than the one that we just saw in that Greek picture. And she has it tucked into the crook of her arm, and then you can see she's drawing out the flax, spinning it with her hands into thread, and then it ultimately is winding onto the spindle in her other hand. Bigger yet, I was like, let's go. And we can see that this is really a staff. This is not something that we could say is really handheld. It's quite long. This is probably at least as tall as her. And this is something that we see quite a bit of in the Norse, Scandinavian, Northern European, Central European collectives over the centuries. Babushka, absolutely, 100%, yes. So we can see that, that this is a much longer piece. And so these staves were something that were, again, passed down matrilineal, from mother to daughter, or from woman to woman. And they were symbols of status as well. And I have yet to discover if there is, like, what are the differences with size? Was that just a convenience and a preference thing? Like, some people just like to work with smaller ones and some folks like to work with larger ones. Was it something where certain regions had different sizes, or different eras? Maybe they were one size, for this century, and a different size in another century. I'm not sure. But yeah, you can see here, this is definitely turn of the century. This person is using a really, really small one. And they are slowly pulling that thread off and then spinning it onto the spindle in their other hand. Again, really small, drop spindle, just big enough to be able to tuck under their arm. And in a lot of these, we can't really see what's going on underneath the wool or the cotton, whatever it is that's that their raw material is. But this one we can. And this egg shape or double egg shape is absolutely the most common that I have found for the top of the distaff. There is certainly a very interesting connection with the egg symbol. And goddesses. We'll talk about that more next class. But, obviously just from a practical standpoint, this was intended to help gather the stuff and keep it up at the top of the staff. But I have a feeling that there probably is something more to the shapes and to the patterns and the things that like that. Here is another style that you might see. Oh, here we go. Thank you, Srilia. The weight of the spindle can determine or aid thickness of yarn. If I remember correctly, that doesn't surprise me at all that the spindle would be pulling as you are spinning the thread out of your big mass of stuff that you're working with. If you have a good weight at the end, I bet it really makes the string quite a bit thinner, would make your thread quite a bit thinner. But I don't know. I've never done it before, but I really, really want to. So these are another style. Like I said, most traditionally are the ones that have the egg shape or the double egg shape up at the top. That's by far the ones that I've seen the most of. But this is another category of them. And these are considered, they're also distaffs, but they have a stang at the top. And a stang is literally when you have a branch that has a natural crotch at the top. It has a natural split into 2 or 3 at one end of it. Highly potent magical stuff. It has god energy, it has goddess energy, it has witch god energy and witch goddess energy. And this is another form of distaff that I have found out there in the world. Here is a person, they have like a nice, really cool decorative wrap around their collection of material that they're working with. And then you can see that they are slowly spinning the thread out of that. Last but not least, I had to include this bad boy. I was like, hello. Give me that old time religion, yeah. I'm just going to leave that up on screen for just a second. Because it deserves its own moment. Love that shit. All right. Moving on. Okay, so Disting and Dizablot, in both of these holidays, we are talking about deities that have something to do with that fate stuff, because they're literally threading the strands of fate. They're spinning the strands of fate, literally. And that is a big part of the energy that we are working with right now. We are in such a transforming time and a shifting period as we move out of winter and into spring. And so we really are kind of spinning the strands of our own fate at this time. All right. Symbols that we are working with at this time of year. Bridget's Cross, corn dollies, fire, candles, and light, the Milky Way, anvil and plow, symbols of the and any symbols of a trade or your trade, spirals, two crescents, the preapic wand, the besom, the cauldron, and the wells and the springs. I think that I may have failed, and I meant to put some slides in, and I don't think that I did. We're going to find out, but I don't think they're here. But I wanted to show you some of that stuff, like the Triskelion and all of that good stuff. The Bridget's Cross is something that's really important. There's actually a pattern, not a pattern, but instructions in the workbook on how to weave your own Bridget's Cross. Really important symbol at this time of year. A lot of people will weave them, keep them up for a year, and then they burn them just before or on Imbolc of the next year, and then they make a new one and they have it for a year. Very popular little practice there. Corn dollies. If you have been working the wheel for some time now, you might remember all of the corn dollies that we were making and talking about during Lunisod season and Mabon season. They come back now. The corn dollies that were woven at the end of Lunisod or at the end of Mabon, maybe even the end of Samhain, but probably not. You probably had already done that work by then. Are from the last rushes, right? The last bits that were left in the field, or the first bits that were left in the field. It's always one or the other. A lot of the corn dollies are woven out of the very first stalk of grain that is cut down, or the first corn that is cut down. So the corn dolly has been woven, it has been created, it has been taken care of, tucked into a little bed. It had some fun at Yule. We did some fun stuff with the corn dolly, and now the corn dollies are being brought back out at Imbolc season, and they will be placed in the first furrow that the plow digs as the farming season kicks up again in this time of year, because of course that also is something that is happening, is the growth cycle is kicking off again. So corn dollies placed in the first groove of the earth that the plow drags. Fire, candles, and light, we've already talked about that a whole bunch. The Milky Way, stargazing at this time of year is pretty fantastic. If you have good skies. The anvil and the plow. The anvil absolutely connects back to Bridget, and the plow, of course, is a tool that is getting brought forward and used. We talked a lot in the Yule class about Plow Monday and Plow Sunday and the Plow Boys and all of that good stuff that's happening in the first week or two of January. And so that energy is still carrying through February and into March. But also are symbols of our trade. If you are an altar builder or you like having work tables, whatever you like to call them, I highly recommend including a symbol of the work that you do. And if you are working a job that isn't necessarily your work, I would put up a symbol of both. I would put up a symbol of the thing that you have to do to make money and the thing that you do that is work, but you love it and all of that stuff. And if you get to be a person that those are the same thing, freaking awesome, right on. That's excellent. But for a lot of folks, that's not the case. we do one thing so that we can make money and live, and then this is the thing that we would prefer to spend our time on. Put symbols of both of those things on your altars or your work tables. Very, very appropriate. Spirals, two crescents, the pre-epic wand we already talked about. Besoms, that's a broom. And let me just show you. I don't think you could see these behind me. These are some incredible handmade brooms that I got from a really dope witch to the south of me. You can find them on Instagram under the account Broomcraft. And this is the broom that they taught me how to make myself. I believe Abby is in the chat. And you'll notice I grabbed this particular branch to make my broom out of because it had the stang at the top. Brooms and besoms are very, very potent symbols for witches to work with at this time of year because we are in our transition, in our shape changing and moving. We're purifying, right? So we're cleaning. We are beginning our spring clean now. Slowly, gently, a little at a time. This is not, let's have a 36-hour Clorox-fueled freak out. That's not what we're talking about here. I mean, help yourself, but that's not what I meant to say. But besoms and brooms are really, really potent energy symbols to work with at this time of year because they are about stirring up and shifting and moving out and clearing out the energy that is in our environments. Abby from Broomcraft is a fantastic teacher and taught me how to make this. I made it myself. They taught me as I was making it, and it took us, I don't know, maybe an hour. It was kind of crazy. I was like, I just made my first broom in an hour, and it totally works, and it's holding together. That's insane. Their artwork is beautiful, but it is also totally utilitarian and totally functional and very hardcore. The broom I didn't bring in here, one of them, I have a ton of brooms from them because they're fantastic. And one of them is a really good workhorse kitchen broom, and it's beautiful to look at, but it's also something that's going to last me for I don't even know how long, and it's built to work. I am a person that keeps my athame sharp. So I really like having tools that also can actually do the job. They're not just a tool in symbol alone, but they are a literal embodiment of it. Broomcraft on Instagram, highly recommend. Abby, if you're still here, feel free to drop your contact information in the chat if you like. If you want people to get a hold of you and, make some dope brooms for them. All right, so these are our symbols that we're working with. The only other one that I would want to mention here are the spirals. The Triskelion or spirals that we work with this time of year, we have spiraled into the very center, into the heart of the darkness, into the stillness, and we are now moving our way back out again. And when you see the symbol of the Triskelion, it is 3 double spirals together. So you spiral in and then you spiral back out. You go to the next one, you spiral in and you spiral back out, and then the third one and back out again. And this is an incredibly important symbol of the goddess. I really meant to have a graphic for you that had these, and I just don't. No, damn it. Next time. Next class. We're all learning together, folks. Next class. But you see this carving of the Triskelion on the main altar stone, as it were, I guess. It's one of the main stones at Brina Boyne, which is Newgrange. And it is this stone with all of these spirals carved all over it is struck by sunlight on the winter solstice. Very much like deep in the heart of this mound. And then Prego, right? Pregnant with the potential, pregnant with the energy. So really, really potent symbols here. All right, let's move on. Oh yeah, the workbook. There's the ad. I wanted to get into some of this stuff a little bit because we never do, but as usual, I have gone too long with other things. So food and drink, plant helpers, incense and oils, animal helpers, mineral helpers, global themes. Let's move into this. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. Kind of. Blap, blap, blap. All right. Looking at the global context, we've talked a lot about what witches and witchcrafters and pagans and heathens are doing at this time of year and the different archetypes and goddesses and gods that they're working with. Now let's take a second and look at what everybody else is doing. Everybody else is doing stuff that's really, really similar to what witches and pagans are doing. Awakening the body, awakening vitality, purification rituals, renewal, rededication to spiritual traditions. Yeah, right? I know. Catch a witch, whoop! Exactly. Like, it's functional and beautiful, and also I'll kick your ass with it. It's good stuff. Okay, so on the global front, we are looking around the globe and throughout time, we see cultures all over the Northern Hemisphere participating in rituals and festivals that celebrate purification, renewal, and rededication in alignment with this cross-quarter fire festival. So, other stuff that's happening at this time of year. Candlemas in the Catholic Church, which celebrates the purification of Mary and Christ's presentation to the temple. This is purification after birth, and also kind of a dedicating to the like, oh wait, you're really fancy, we should probably treat you like a god. The feasts of Oya, which is the Yoruba goddess of storms, rivers, death, and rebirth. Yay, you're welcome, Abby. Thanks. There you go, guys. The old European New Year happens at this time of year, celebrating the New Year, and it's dedicated to the triple goddess Hecate. A very obscure little holiday called Groundhog's Day, which you may or may not have heard of. Lesser Eleusinian mysteries, the Feast of Bridget, which is the Celtic Christian version. These are all also happening at this time of year. Because we are running long, if you would like to know more about Groundhog's Day and its connection to all of this good stuff, you can find an article on my website, meganangus.com. Just type in Imbolc, and it's in the Imbolc writings, but you can also type in Groundhog's Day, and it'll come up that way too. But long story short, Kalaic also has a Groundhog's Day-like bit about her. And the idea is when you go out on February 2nd, if the weather is nice, that means Kalaic is sleeping. She's taking a nap. And that means that she's going to have plenty of energy to keep winter going for as long as she wants to. So if you go out on February 2nd and the weather is beautiful, expect more winter because Kalaic is rested up and she's going to have plenty of energy to keep it snowing and raining and icy and frosty for as long as she wants. If, however, you go out on February 2nd and the weather is terrible, that means Kalaic is up and doing stuff and she's going to tire out sooner, and the winter weather, in theory, is going to end or pull back sooner. The good weather, quote unquote good weather, will be coming sooner because Kalaic will be tired out. So there's that. Other holy days that we are seeing at this time of year, those days that I just listed all happen in the February 1, February 2 time period. Other holy days that are happening sort of during the Imbolc season. Thorablot, which we talked about, that's the Norse winter sacrifice. Lene, the Greek festival for water spirits. Haraka Matsuri, the Japanese purification festival. Terminalia, which is the end of the Roman year. The Olokun festival, which is the multi-gendered Yoruba goddess who rules waters and purification. Feast of Rhiannon, the Welsh goddess of fertility, prosperity, skill, and horses. And Thaipusam, the Malaysian purification festival, which has really incredible symbolism in it. One, if you look up Thaipusam, be warned, a lot of the ritual work around this festival is mortification of the body. So there is really intense piercing and scarification. These are those pictures that you see of folks that are ringed literally with hundreds of spears going through their arms or their back or what have you, and they're parading through the streets and they've got a sword through their tongue and all of that really wild stuff. It's really beautiful, super, super intense, maybe not the content for some folks. But the idea is a purification of the body, purification of the soul through this really rigorous and intense experience. And some of those people that are doing mortification of the flesh, as well as others who don't participate in that part, also will carry a giant jug on their head filled with milk. And they have to go, miles with this thing, ultimately from one holy site to another holy site, and then the jugs are poured out and used for purification and all of this good stuff. So really, really cool. Lots of symbolism all packed into this one little holiday. And you're like, wow, you guys really dialed it in over there in Malaysia. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other really big and more infamous holidays that we know of globally that happened during Imbolc season. Well, one of the biggest ones is the global Lunar New Year. And this happens every year. It is always the new moon that falls between January 20th and February 20th. So doesn't matter how many new moons we've had from winter solstice on, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the new moon is between January 20th and February 20th, that's going to be the Lunar New Year. One of the things that I added to your calendars this year for everybody who's got a workbook, you will notice when you see the new moons, there is a number in parentheses next to it. That is the number of the lunar month. And so number 1 is the new moon that is coming up here in February. And this year will be the year of the ox. This is an incredibly important timekeeping device, understanding the lunar months as they actually play out through the cycle, because currently, literally billions of people build their calendars off of the lunar cycle. Jewish folks, Muslims, Hindus. I mean, it's literally most of Asia. You're literally talking about billions of people around the planet use the moon and its lunar cycle as the basis for their calendars of when their months start and stop. And as we go back through time, we find that is also true. The Greeks, the Romans, the Babylonians, etc., etc. Now, fixed stars absolutely play important roles here. And the sun and its movement also play an important role in this, but the lunar phases, it's a big deal. So I've really packed your calendar this time with all the lunar phases. The new moons, the full moons have always been there, but now the waxing moons and the waning moons, the half moons, because those also were used to mark time going backwards through time. Okay, so the Lunar New Year, big, big, big deal. This happens during Imbolc season every year. Always falling on the new moon between January 20th and February 20th. This time point is observed by billions of people in Asia and around the world by cleaning their homes, purification, reuniting with family, worshiping ancestors, and shooting off fireworks. However you can incorporate that stuff into your Imbolc practices, potent shit. Vasant Panchami, the Hindu festival marking the pre-funk to spring, dedicated to Saraswati, who is a goddess that is very, very similar to Bridget. She is a goddess, a great goddess of creativity, skills, talents, and millions of Hindus wear bright yellow clothing, eat yellow foods, fly kites, shop for school supplies, and begin to get ready for the epic festival Holi, which happens 40 days later. And that whole 40-day thing, that's like a thing with religions. It's crazy. So we have the Lunar New Year. We have a big old festival dedicated to Saraswati, a goddess of skills and talents and knowledge and crafts. Saraswati is always depicted playing a sitar. I have a little Saraswati right here. And she's always depicted playing this instrument because it is thought of as one of the most difficult instruments to learn how to play. And so she is showing how skilled she is by just sitting there and plunking out, I don't know, Freebird, whatever it is. Who knows? Oh, did I... I'm scaring myself and I'm the only one here. All right. Other late winter festivals that we're seeing throughout February, we see the Powamu from the Hopi, the Midwinter Dream Festival from Iroquois, and Shatek Zel Ha, which means midwinter, from the Oneida tribes here on Turtle Island. Native American festivals held at this time of year, they all span several days and are usually connected to the lunar movements. All festivals take time to honor ancestors, feast with loved ones. Special focus is pushed toward star goddesses, waking up the land, and blessing seeds and cleansing equipment for a good growing season. And again, we see that stuff repeated over and over and over again. Yeah, right? Paint it black, exactly. And then the last two holidays that we'll talk about it from this time of year are the Carnival Mardi Gras Lent cycle begins now. And of course, that is celebrated globally, and Carnival stretches back into time. We can see ancient festivals that mimic what Carnival was doing. Saturnalia from the Yule season looks like what Carnival was doing, but we see all that stuff even back to Samhain season, going back thousands of years. This is the Catholic Church's annual global bacchanal and purification ritual. Billions of people are encouraged to indulge in the sweet life and then purify through abstinence and mortification for the next 46-ish days, which delivers you to Easter. So that's the math there. It is 46-ish days because it's 40 days and a week of Sundays. Catholics. This whole chunk can overlap with Ostara season. So sometimes Carnival and Mardi Gras don't even happen until Ostara season, and Easter is way, way, way out in May, I think is the latest that it can come. In fact, in the Eastern Orthodox Church, Easter can come all the way, I think, in June is how far it can be out. It's still springtime, right? June is still before the summer solstice, but kind of pushing it there. And then the other big holiday that I love to talk about at this time of year is Lupercalia. Lupercalia has kind of taken on a life of its own. It has really come back in popularity with a vengeance for a lot of pagans and heathens because we're all perverts, I think, is why it's really popular. This holiday has had a lot of things put at its feet, which may or may not have any kind of historicity to them. This is another holiday that I have a big old piece written up about on my website, meganangus.com. Feel free to go check it out, Lupercalia. But the short version is, this is the Roman Purification and Fertility Festival featuring nearly naked priests running through the streets, whipping people with leather thongs to wake up the spirit and the libido after the freeze of winter. Folks who wanted to get pregnant made sure to expose plenty of skin. The thongs, the whips, the leather whips that they used were made out of goat skin, and they were called februa. Februe. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that slightly, but it's februa. And they were used for both purification as well as waking up the vitality in people. Now, when they were first doing this, it was just booty as far as the eye could see, streets filled with naked goons running around, whipping each other and wearing the little goat thongs and doing it up. And as time went along, it became more and more of a thing of like, we have to do this to appease the gods, but oh my God, So then only the rich people could do it, and then after a while it was like not cool to be a part of it, and so they would pay for poor people to do it. It was like it had to be enacted, but they couldn't do it themselves. You gotta love it. Okay, so but BDSM, all right, look, it's old tradition. There's nothing, I don't make the rules. Okay, nothing I can do about it. Moving on to some astronomy, some astrology, and then some tarot. At this time of year, astronomy-wise, we are talking about tropical astrology and astronomy, and things can get a little confusing. So here is the tiniest of preambles. What we practice in Western astrology does not match what is physically happening in the sky right now. There are other forms of astrology that do base their work on what is physically happening in the sky right now. It's not to say that this is right or that this is wrong. There are different methods, but when you're doing this work, it can get a little confusing because astronomically, we're saying that the sun is in a certain place, and astrologically, we're saying that the sun is in a different place. So just be aware of that. The shorthand of that is what we practice astrologically here in the West is called tropical astrology, Hellenistic astrology, evolutionary astrology. They all kind of fall within the Western canon. It's approximately 2,000 years behind in terms of what is physically happening in the sky. No big deal, just 2,000 years. So when we are talking about what is happening astrologically, we are going to be talking about one sign, and then when we're talking about what is happening astronomically, we will often be talking about a different sign, usually the one behind it, because everything goes backwards just to make this as confusing as possible. The gods really had it out for us, I'm just saying. So, in January, we have a whole bunch of really cool full moon names, things like Wolf Moon, Holiday Moon, Quiet Moon. February, we have the Snow Moon, we have the Hunger Moon, Bone Moon, Raccoon Moon. My favorite February moon name is Shoulder to Shoulder Around the Fire Moon. I think that's so cool. It is Algonquin. And a lot of the traditional, what we think of as the traditional full moon names, come from specifically Algonquin tribes, other Native American tribes to a lesser extent, and then Western European names, kind of in that order of influence. Naming moons is something that has been really popular all over the planet for a really, really long time. In January, the full moons are always going to be in Cancer or Leo. And in February, your full moon is always going to be in Leo or Virgo. The last full moon of winter is the worm moon. And our last full moon of winter will be February 27th. So we'll have almost a whole month before spring equinox, but the next full moon happens just after the equinox, so. But the last full moon of winter, wherever it falls, is called the worm moon. Other things to talk about astronomically are the two main constellations that we're working with. The two main signs that we're working with at this time are Aquarius, the water bearer, and Pisces, the fishes or the dolphin. In Aquarius, we have some really cool stuff in terms of the fixed stars and their names. One is Luck of the King, one is Luckiest of the Lucky, and one is the Wish. That's just 3 of the stars that we find in the constellation of Aquarius. So there's something about this that's really about luck, fate, fortune, that sort of thing. The depiction of the constellation is often shown as a being, almost always a man or a boy, or somebody that looks like they've been, identified or drawn to be a man or a boy, pouring out a gigantic jug of water. Sometimes it's even just the jug of water. But what we're actually looking at, in my opinion, when you see the full constellation, it looks like a mountain peak and streams and rivers of water running down the mountain peak. And that is exactly how Aquarius season has been depicted, is that there is some great entity up in the mountains tipping out a jug or pushing something over and causing this great flow, which would explain the snow melt that people are witnessing at this time of year. The water come rushing down from the mountain peaks. In Pisces, we have also known as the fishes, the dolphin, also known as Tiamat, or Typhon. We have fixed stars like the cord or the knot or the mouth of the fish, but in some eras, the constellation of Pisces is depicted as more water pouring out of Aquarius. Like Pisces isn't even really considered. It's not even really a thing. It's like, no, that's annexed to that guy over there. And then other events that we see at this time of year, the heliacal rising of Vega and all of your main, not every single fixed star that I mentioned in the books, but the big main ones that are used by folks that work with fixed stars are all listed in your calendar with their current heliacal rising. That's going to be different by a day or two up to a week or more different from what I list if I actually put it on a day in the calendar, depending on your latitude. Longitude? Latitude. Depending on where you are on the planet. Other things that we're seeing at this time of year, solar Imbolc is on February 3rd, and that is when the sun actually hits 15 degrees of Aquarius. Migrations are beginning all over the planet. All of the great migratory birds and animals and insect patterns that we see are starting up again, and they're all leaving their hot places and coming back to the north. Many rivers and waterways are surging, and mammals are beginning to deliver their first or their only babies of the year, and there is much lactation, which again, the flowing milk, the milk flowing out. All right. I'm going to read a little thing to you, so sit back, relax, enjoy. Get another drink if you like. More popcorn. This is some more information for you about the sign of Aquarius and stuff that's sort of associated with this astrological sign. The constellation Aquarius has featured the same central imagery for over 5,000 years. A man or a boy bearing a jug of water, sometimes pouring it out. Infrequently, it is an animal, like a mule, bearing two jugs, and sometimes it is simply the vessel itself pouring out a massive stream of water. It was thought to be the source of the Nile, and when the Nile began to crest every year, ancient Egyptians imagined the great constellation dipping his massive jug in the river, and that would cause the water to rise. Babylonians aligned their 11th month with Aquarius, for them called Shabbatu, or Shabbatu, the curse of the rain. And in their legendary epic of creation, the 11th chapter covered the myth of the deluge, or the flood. For the Akkadians, it was Kuruku. For the Turks, it was Kuga, and that name is really similar to Kumbha, the massive, the name that Hindus give this constellation. So Hindus refer to this constellation as Kumbha. A massive festival called Kumbh Mela happens every 12 years in India when Jupiter moves into Aquarius, the sun moves into Aries, and the moon is in Sagittarius. Now, here's one of those places where things are going to get a little confusing, because if you practice Western or tropical astrology, all you have heard about for the last 2 months or whatever is the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, at the beginning of Aquarius, at the start of Aquarius. Jupiter is in Aquarius now, according to Western astrology. However, according to astronomy and sidereal astrology, Vedic astrology, which is practiced by Hindus, Jupiter is still in Capricorn, and Jupiter will not enter Aquarius until next year, 2022. So, the massive festival called Kumbh Mela happens every 12 years in India when Jupiter moves into Aquarius, the sun moves into Aries, and the moon is in Sagittarius. So it takes place over about 2.5, 3 days, because the moon is only in a sign for 2.5 to 3 days at a time. Held in Hardwar, one of the 4 places where Vishnu, or sometimes Garuda, spilled Amrita, which we discussed, while transporting it in a kumbha pot. Worshippers bless themselves in the waters of the Ganges, believing enlightenment to be pouring out of the Himalayas and down on them, washing them of their sins. So let's go over that for a second. Garuda is an eagle that Vishnu rides, and Garuda is carrying this giant jug full of Amrita, which we already discussed, and it pours out. Hello. Okay. It is not only the largest gathering of religious pilgrims in the world, but it is also the largest peaceful gathering in the world. The Mela in 2013 saw 120 million people show up to the Ganges in about 3 days. 30 million in one day. The next one is next year. Let's get our vaccines and go. Who's with me? I want to go. I think this would be incredible. I think it would probably also be a massive shock to the system to go and experience something like that. I don't know if I'm prepared after literally being in isolation for a year and a half to go hang out with 30 million people in a day, but I'm willing to find out. I think it would be fun. Plus, this whole like sin relief of karma thing. I'm really into that too. I like it. I'm into it. Okay. The Greeks saw this constellation as Ganymedes, or Ganymedes, a young Phrygian boy that Zeus fell in love with. We love the patriarchy. We don't love the patriarchy. Zeus fell in love with Ganymedes and brought them back to Mount Olympus. Zeus, as an eagle, to be the cupbearer of the gods. Zeus trades a bunch of horses to Ganymedes' dad, King Tros, or Troy, and it's all good. Okay, so super problematic. We're not really into like that whole adult-child situation and like people's parents selling them off. Not cool, right? Okay, so there's a lot of problematic stuff with that portion, but the golden thread to this archetype is who is brought up. We have this archetype that is brought up to heaven without having to die first. And that potentially connects to a character named Enoch, who lived 365 years and became the mouth of God, as well as Elijah, who is taken up to heaven without dying, oddly, on a chariot drawn by horses. And there is a Jewish practice of leaving a cup out for Elijah should he return. So there's that cup imagery over and over and over again. Okay. We are running short on time. We always leave stuff out. It's just the way it goes. If you want all the good shit, get the book. It's in the book. It's in the book. / subscribe to my Patreon. I know I brought it up before. I don't mean to be like ads, but subscribe to my Patreon because trust and believe surprises, excitements, gifts, expansion on the material is coming this year. That's all I'm going to say. Just saying. If you've been taking these classes from me for a while, every single year there's only some of the information I can get out. There's only some of the stories that I can tell. And the rest of it has to wait until next time. And I am doing stuff about that. That's all I'm going to say. All right, let's move on to tarot. Let me talk a little tiny little bit more about astrology. Our full moon, our first full moon of Imbolc was last night. It is right now, basically. That is at 23 degrees of Aquarius. And while we are in this full moon in Aquarius vibe, not full moon, Leo, or not, it is full moon. It's in Leo, not in Aquarius. we are wanting to step into and investigate and explore our mother or queen energy. What is that? What does that feel like? Is it funky? Is it good? Does it feel burdensome? What is that? And we want to look at the places where we can step up and hold space for other people while they're getting their work done. And we also want to honor those people that are holding space for us while we get our work done. And then on February 11th, we have the new moon in Aquarius at 23 degrees. This is all in your calendar. And I highly recommend taking some private time to critically examine and call out your traditional beliefs, your patterning, your attitudes that have been handed to you, but they may not serve you. The metaphor, the imagery that I want to give you with that is a great tapestry in front of you. And there's somebody over there, we saw pictures of them earlier, that's taking the raw material of the universe and slowly spinning it into threads. And then those threads are ultimately making their way to us. And there is this giant tapestry that's in front of us. Are we weaving the whole thing? No. We're responsible for the portion that is in front of us. What are the patterns that we want to put in here? What patterns do we want to not carry forward? Somebody else wove that pattern in. I'm not continuing it. I'm doing a different design. What threads are coming to me that I want to incorporate? What threads am I not seeing that I want to ask for? I need more of this color. I need more of that color. And what threads might be being offered to me that I'm like, no, I'm not weaving with that thread anymore. I don't like the weft. I don't like it. We're not into that. We're not bringing that into the mix anymore at all. And as these threads move through, they ultimately move out of the tapestry, and someone over there, Kalaic, right? We saw a picture of them too. Someone over there has the job of cutting that thread and saying, this thread is no more. This portion of the tapestry is complete. There's nothing else to do here. That's not our job. Spinning the stuff out of the raw material of the universe, that also isn't necessarily our job. Our job is right here in front of us, of weaving our portion of the tapestry where we are. So I want to give you that metaphor to work with as we move through this lunar cycle of this full moon that we're in right now, and then the coming new moon, of being able to kind of sit with yourself and say, where am I making decisions? Where am I deciding what the pattern of the tapestry is going to be? And who told me that was a good idea? Is it a good idea? Should I be using these threads? Should I be trying to invoke or evoke another pattern? Should I be asking the universe for more threads to work with, or letting the universe know these threads are not going to work? We're done working with them. We're throwing them out. Somebody please cut this because we're done. That stuff. We are, to an extent dealing with the raw material of the universe, and we are really being asked to kind of sit in it and dream and imagine and drift in that for a little while, and then ultimately pick the pattern and start to make the plan and start to do the work. And then we move into Pisces, and our new moon in Pisces is, the next moon in the cycle is the full moon in Virgo, and then that's February 27th at 8 degrees of Virgo, and then March 13th at 23 degrees of Pisces is our last moon, more or less, of the Imbolc season. And in Pisces, we are, in fact, drifting and kind of dreaming and swimming in this massive sea of potential, because it's right before spring. We're right there at the edge of it's time to do the thing. And we want to make sure that we give ourselves a little bit of a moment to kind of drift and dream and really open up to potential and open up to possibility, and say to ourselves, we don't want to cut off any opportunity from spring. We don't, especially in the world that we're living in right now, like, this is a fantastic time as a witch, as a pagan, as a heathen, as a free thinker, to insist a better now into the world. And that starts with cleaning out patterning from old shit that's actually not cool, And then B, really giving yourself an opportunity to dream of something really fantastic, really wild, really, really out there. Why not? Why limit yourself? What if, right? So the meditations for that, I have a bit of writing here for the astrology folks, but it's in the book. We don't have time. But some meditations for this. During the Aquarius lunar cycle, on the new moon, let's start with the full moon because that's right now that we're working with it. This is the Queen's moon. The names for the moon come from Raven Caldera's book, Moon Phase Astrology. It's fantastic. It's in the bibliography of the workbook. What does mothering mean to you? And take some journaling time and describe a person or a people or a group, a community that you would describe as mothering you, past or present. And again, this doesn't have to be your physical mom. This doesn't even have to be an individual that you personally know. This could be a movement that mothered you. This could be a cultural icon that mothered you. But explore that. What does mothering mean? And then who do you put in that category? And then on the new moon in Aquarius, what does fathering mean? Describe the person or the people or the groups that you would describe as fathering you, and in the past or in the present. And the same thing. What is that? And what did you get from those sources? And in what ways might you unconsciously embody the things that mother or father have given you? Really, really important stuff that we do right now. And then as we move through the Pisces season, we hit that full moon in Virgo. I'm asking you to consider what energy cycles from the past are you carrying forward into this new year? Are they obligations or are they blessings? Right? We're probably not going to get rid of all of it. We're going to carry some stuff through. That's why this examination is so important, and this shifting and this changing, this transmogrifying is so important. We're going to carry some of it through. So whatever gets carried through, that also needs to get examined. Are you worth it? Should you be here? Do I want to continue to build my present and my future with these beliefs, with these ideas, with these philosophies? Is that right and good? And then our new moon in Pisces, way out in the middle of March, just before the equinox. Take 3 deep breaths and allow yourself to imagine the most incredible version of yourself in a utopian world. What kind of year are they about to have? Describe a day. This is a fantastic journaling exercise. It's a fantastic visualization exercise of thinking of the dopest version of yourself in the dopest world possible, and what kind of a life would that person be living? What would they be doing right now? Describe a single day of their action. All right. Almost last but not least, what are we going to do? We are going to do, okay. We're going to do a little tarot, and then we're going to do the meditations at the end, and then we're going to be done. That's it. That's all there's time for. That's all there's time for. Get the book. All right. Get the book. Oh, there's the sky guide. Sorry. There's our moon stuff, too. You'd think I'd never done this before, but in fact, I've done it once or twice. Hey, all right, there we go. Our tarot helpers that we are working with at this time of year are the Star and the Fool card. The Star is ruled by the sign of Aquarius, and the Fool is ruled by the planet Uranus, which rules the sign Aquarius in modern astrology. And for folks that would like to go to the bonus round, you can also add in working with the 5 of Swords, the 6 of Swords, and the 7 of Swords. And isn't the Swords a fun suit for folks that do astrology? Isn't that fun? It's fun, huh? The Star card speaks to a potentially hard time in our life, but one that is filled with promise. And as a side note, once again, magic and reality sync up, and, envision the captain of a ship, tossed on the Black Sea, looking desperately for the North Star to guide them. When they get their bearings, they realize they are near the shore of a continent no one believes exists, off the edge of the map. Wow, right? Isn't that incredible? That is the picturesque version. In reality, the other sailors think that the captain has gone mad. The fool has found their guiding star and is going to follow this light no one else can see, even if, especially if, it leads them off the edge of the world. When we struggle with what our guiding star will be, and we try to reconcile on a soul level what it looks like to heed the wild call, back in the mundane world, we work through how to reconcile when we choose to live by a philosophy that is shocking or upsetting to our people, past or present. And how we choose to communicate about it. Confrontationally? Not at all. Sometimes silence says volumes, and sometimes it is right to keep our mental chaos to ourselves. Moreover, there's something potent to letting an idea percolate and foment in the mind before sharing it with other people. But when we do speak our truth, we must have the conviction of the shaman who steps off the cliff. We have to believe it first before anyone else will. And so working with these two cards, really these 5 cards, helps bring us into a state of potential, of abandon, of almost naivety, where we have had some hardship, we have had some hard times, not like we probably don't have hard times in our future as well, but this is a moment to sort of drift and to think to ourselves, what could be? What could we summon out of the universe? What could we create? What could we evoke? What could we invoke? All right. Last but not least, other stuff that's in the book, there's some prayers in here. One of my favorite ones is a traditional ancient Roman prayer. I plant these seeds for myself and my neighbor. Pretty straightforward, but really insisting that intention. I have a guide in here for building your altars. We have suggested colors and food and drink. And all I will say about food and drink, and this is kind of important, it sits with that idea of purification. The idea of pure food and things like that has a boatload of baggage with it. There's a lot of privilege. There's a lot of white body bullshit and thin body bullshit and able body bullshit built into this idea of pure foods and purifying and detoxing and things like that. That all being said, arguably there are health benefits to different types of fasting. If fasting is something that is medically safe for you, and do not take that from me, you need to go talk to a real doctor, not Dr. Love, an actual doctor, about if that kind of a practice is safe for you or not. Maybe that's a half a day thing. Maybe that's a juice fast. I don't know. Sure, practice that. But something that is more practical and realistic to this time period is emptying out. And so it is a sacred act to empty out your cupboards, to eat the last of things, to not buy more of the thing until the old one has been emptied out and is gone. So if you're eating rice, don't go buy more rice until you have emptied out all of the rice. Empty out the freezer and make a soup out of all of those veg parts that are just sitting in the freezer. That, I'm going to make broth out of that someday. Now is the time. Do it. Make it. And empty that out. What you're really doing is sort of burning through the last of your reserves from the old energy cycle. We don't want to bring that new energy into the new cycle, or we don't want to bring that old energy into the new cycle. We want to burn out and blow out and wash out and empty out all of our energetic reserves from the old energy cycle. That way we are empty vessels, ready and waiting for that spring surge when that new energy cycle kicks in and starts up again. So emptying that out, emptying out your pantries, eating the last of things, eating the ends of things, that's all really super appropriate to our Imbolc imagery. Other stuff, things that have been canned, fermented, pickled, any of that kind of stuff, foods that you made in summer or fall that have been sitting for a while, that's also the stuff that we should be eating, because really we still can't rely on the planet to be producing boatloads of veg and boatloads of fruit. So we want to be eating up the reserves from the old energy cycle in all of the ways that we can. There's some incense recipes in here. There is instructions on how to make a Bridget's wheel or a Bridget's cross. And last but not least, our meditations. Here are some journaling exercises for you that you can do in ritual if you want as your Imbolc ritual, or you can use these throughout the season as something that you might come back to and journal on over and over again. A fresh new world is on its way. Actually, let me do this. Sure, a blank canvas. There we go. A fresh new world is on its way. What new beginnings are you dreaming up? You are a sacred being, and you can do sacred works if you choose to. How are you returning to and honoring your sources of power? And last, your deep wisdom allows you to see opportunity in the void of the black frozen earth. What sacred seed are you becoming? What could happen this year? And last but not least, well, I've said that a million times, but yay, thank you so freaking much to my patrons and my students. Oh my gosh. This last year has been really life-changing for me. It really has been an exceptional experience to be teaching this work and helping people, teaching tarot, working with students one-on-one, all of that really great stuff. But it also has been very affirming. At the beginning of 2020, my Patreon was just under $100, and now it's just over $900. I just got my 45th patron, and maybe we'll get 50. Maybe I'll hit 50 soon. We'll see. But it really is the difference. I do this for a living, and this is what I do for a living. I write, I teach, I tutor, and I'm putting all of my energy into doing this work and doing this research and teaching you guys and trying to provide all of this stuff for whoever it is that hears this or watches this. And so it's really thanks to you guys that this is even possible or a reality for me. And being a fire sign, being a person who was convinced that pull yourself up by your bootstraps was an actual ethos. I've always had a very hard time asking for help. And now I'm really trying to shift into understanding that what I'm experiencing is mutual aid. It isn't charity. I'm giving to you and you guys are giving to me, and it's really, really incredible. It still freaks me out, but it's really incredible. So thank you. And thanks for joining me. This has been Imbolc. Go out there, dream, fire up the plow, bang on the anvil a little bit, write some poetry, heal yourself, do some divination work for yourself or your community, and ask about that new energetic cycle that's coming for us. But also thank and honor and give praise to the crafts person in yourself, the wisdom keeper, the skill person in yourself that has amassed this wisdom, that has done this work, and give that thanks to the teachers and the wisdom keepers and the crafts people and the skilled folk in your community who are keeping you the fuck alive right now. Don't pardon my language. Let's emphasize it, put an underline under that. The people that are bringing you your groceries, the people that are the people that are still driving buses, the people that are still driving delivery vans. Thanks so much to those folks. Not to mention the people that are in the medical field and the healthcare industry. Not to mention the people that are in the death industry, that are, there with the silver scissors saying, okay, I'm here to cut the cord and take this person and this thread into the next form. So many thank yous to all of those entities and beings, whether they are archetypal deities or they are our neighbors. Thank you so much for keeping it going, for keeping the wheel turning while we take a nap and have a little moment of hibernation and restore and reset ourselves. And then it'll be our turn to keep the fire tended while they take their nap and they do their rejuvenation and restoration and renewal. Because that's the way that community works. So thank you so much. Love you guys. Happy Imbolc. Hope your hibernation was fantastic. Welcome to the quickening. Welcome to the waking up moment. And yeah, that's it. Mwah. Like, subscribe, follow. I'm on social media everywhere under Megan Angus Witch. Yeah, see you next time. Bye bye. Do 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 do